Today's topic needs no introduction. Pirates are one of the most popular types of characters in Star Wars, and today we're going to take a look at a few ships I think they should use. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and these are 5 more great ships for pirates in Star Wars.
Stand by, ion control. Fire.
Victor Wing. The first ship on the list is a somewhat unusual starfighter. The Victor Wing is built around the turret platform seen on most YT series freighters like the YT-1300. In fact, it's really just the turret platform with a cockpit, engines, and wings attached. It would probably be more accurate to call the Victor Wing a gunship rather than a starfighter, because it was larger and more heavily armed than starfighters tend to be. The Victor Wing measured about 26.5 meters long and wide, and 3.7 meters tall. It probably had a Class 1 or 2 hyperdrive and a top speed of around 1,000 kilometers per hour. It was armed with 1 quad ion cannon turret and 4 laser cannons. The price and other details are unknown, but I would guess that it needed at least a pilot and a gunner and cost around 100,000 credits. I think you will agree that this ship would be perfect for a pirate fleet. I don't think it would be big enough to serve as a solo pirate ship, but it would be worth its weight in gold as a starfighter complement serving alongside a larger pirate ship. It appears to have a fairly sizable interior, likely meaning that it could have storage space for stolen loot or living quarters for extended missions. If that is what you used the space for, you could even pair a Victor Wing or 2 with a ship with no hangar, like some of the smaller ships on this list and the other pirate ship videos I've made. More important, though, were its weapons. A quad ion cannon turret is an incredible asset, allowing the ship to dart around and precisely target and disable key systems on enemy ships, or defend itself from more maneuverable enemy starfighters. I would be willing to bet this is one of the smallest ships on the market with a quad ion or laser turret, making the Victor Wing a very solid investment. And if that were its only weapon, it would still be very good, but it also has the 4 forward laser cannons if you encounter a target that needs to be destroyed rather than disabled. All in all, I can almost guarantee you will be satisfied with the Victor Wing. YV-929. The Corellian Engineering Corporation YV-929 armed freighter is potentially one of the most insane ships the company ever built. This was a very small freighter armed with capital-grade weapons and shields. It's almost laughable to call it a freighter, but we'll humor CEC on this. The ship was designed for defense against pirates and rebels, but ended up being very popular amongst those groups instead. It was also popular with the corporate sector authority. I would wager that it was marketed to companies hauling small amounts of highly valuable cargo, like banks that needed to move around physical credits. But it would be great for relieving others of their cargo instead, as many pirates discovered. The YV-929 measured 22 meters long by about 15 meters wide and 6.7 meters tall. It had a Class 2 hyperdrive and a top speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour. Its crew consisted of 1 pilot and 3 gunners, and it could be operated by as little as just 1 crew if necessary. It also had room for 6 passengers, 150 tons of cargo, and 3 months of consumables somewhere. I find it hard to reconcile its tiny size with both its physical appearance and its capacity for 10 people on board with more cargo than a YT-1300, but perhaps it just needs to be very dense cargo. Of course, its weapons were the main attraction. It was armed with 2 double turbo laser cannons, 2 ion cannons, 2 triple blasters, and 4 concussion missile launchers. There are warships 5 times this size that are less heavily armed. Turbo lasers are almost unheard of on ships this small, and this has those and more. All that weaponry comes at a steep cost though, with a price of 250,000 credits new or 100,000 used, but if you're looking for pure firepower to either add to your fleet or use as a standalone pirate ship, the YV-929 is worth every penny. GR-75. Originally, I had been planning to talk about the Hammerhead Corvette for the middle slot in this list, and had all kinds of interesting things I was going to say about it, until I realized just before writing that I had already said all that when I included the Hammerhead in the first pirate ship list. So I went back to look at the comments on the first and second installments to see what people had suggested, and there were a couple of them mentioning the Gallowfree Yard's GR-75 medium transport. It wasn't really doing anything for me at first, until I remembered the containers. You can get up to all kinds of mischief with cargo containers. It's a trope that spans multiple sci-fi franchises. In Star Wars Rebels, we see Iron Squadron using a YT-2400 to throw crates full of explosives at Imperial ships. In Battlestar Galactica, they hide a squadron of starfighters inside a shipping container to sneak past Cylon defenses, and I think we've seen similar things done in Star Wars as well. In The Expanse, a Belter strike team builds boarding pods out of shipping containers so that they can approach an enemy station on a freighter without raising any suspicion.
Question. What's the go signal? For the assault.
That will explode and turn into a door. Good hunting.
They also pretend their attack craft was a loose shipping container they were coming to salvage, but that technique probably wouldn't work in Star Wars due to this setting's more advanced sensors. I think I've also seen missile launchers hidden in shipping containers in various shows or movies, and you could probably come up with a million more examples if you looked hard enough. The GR-75 carried a large number of containers, easily over 100, so you could conceivably do all of these and more. Keep some containers as cargo space, though it also had an internal cargo hold, so you may not need to. Put hidden laser cannons, ion cannons, or turbo lasers in some, missile or torpedo launchers in others, and turn the containers at the ends of the racks into boarding pods to send pirates to enemy ships to steal their stuff. I'm not sure if even tiny starfighters like the A-Wing or the Pirate Snubfighter would fit in the containers that the GR-75 carried, but it's certainly possible. Or if not, you could build a larger hangar structure underneath the ship that is covered in fake containers so that nobody notices. And nobody noticing it is the whole point of using a GR-75. It's a relatively common and completely innocuous freighter that isn't going to raise any alarms on the freighters you'd be targeting. A YV-929 dropping out of hyperspace unexpectedly is going to concern anyone who is aware of its reputation and capabilities, but nobody will suspect that a slow, poorly armed GR-75 is going to launch a swarm of missiles or a squadron of fighters until it's too close to escape them. The GR-75 measured 90 meters long by 29 meters wide and 17 tall. It had an abysmal top speed of 650 kilometers per hour and a Class 4 hyperdrive. You would probably want to upgrade these to at least 800 kilometers per hour and a Class 2, though it would probably be wise to fly it at the stock speeds until you're ready to attack. It had a crew of 7, a pilot, co-pilot, engineer, cargo master, and 3 additional crew. The more weapons and features you add to it, the more crew you will need to add to operate them, but 7 is a good starting point. It also carried 6 months of consumables for them to live off of, and a whopping 19,000 tons of cargo. The basic GR-75 was unarmed, but a combat retrofit program could add 4 twin laser cannons. You will probably want to choose your own weapons though, and choose something more powerful than that. The ship cost a respectable 180,000 credits, but you will probably have to spend much more to convert it for pirate use. Even if that adds up to another 100,000 or so though, it would still be an exceptional value for the false sense of security you'll be able to instill in your targets with such an unexpected pirate ship. Dreadnought-class heavy cruiser. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum is the Rendili Stardriver Dreadnaught-class heavy cruiser. This intimidating vessel was considered highly outdated by the time of the Imperial era, but it was one of the most mass-produced warships in galactic history and still saw use for decades after the Empire fell. I don't really have any secret techniques or selling points to give you to convince you to use one of these for piracy. It kind of just speaks for itself. It was large, well-armed, and fairly common, with a proven track record for combat capability. But it had its fair share of drawbacks too. It was slow, its computers were weak and prone to failure, and it was one of the most crew-intensive ships of its size ever built. You would need to correct these shortcomings before using it as a pirate ship. This would probably be expensive, but it could be done. The Republic military outfitted 200 dreadnoughts, the Katana fleet, with technology that significantly reduced their crew requirements, and the Rebel Alliance came up with a whole modernization package to upgrade dreadnoughts to a new class of ship called Rebel Assault Cruisers that had not only 1/3 of the crew requirements of the original, but much more impressive stats as well. Those were not for sale though, and the Dreadnought is, so you can start with one of those and upgrade as you see fit. The Dreadnought-class measured 600 meters long by 116.5 meters wide and 129.7 tall. It was equipped with a woeful Class 4 hyperdrive, but could be upgraded to a much better Class 2. Its atmospheric speed was unknown, but probably on the order of 750 kilometers per hour. Its crew complement, as mentioned, was outrageous, with an original figure of 16,210, of which 97 were gunners, and its minimum operational capacity only reduced it to 9,000. The Katana fleet style refit pared it down to just 2,204 crew, and the Assault Frigate Mark I, a dreadnought with additional stuff strapped to it, required 5,000 crew or a minimum of 1,500. So with some work, you could get a dreadnought down to a crew capacity more suitable for a pirate. I wouldn't plan on having more than one in your fleet, though. The Dreadnought was armed with 10 medium turbo-laser batteries, 20 light quad turbo-laser cannons, and 20 laser cannons, which was quite a lot for a ship of this size. Most of the weapons were housed in armored blisters on the sides of the ship. It was also common to see dreadnoughts upgraded to include ion cannons and a concussion missile launcher. The Dreadnought didn't include a hangar at first, but later on many of them were modified to convert the center cargo hold into a hangar that could carry 12 starfighters and a shuttle. Stock dreadnoughts could carry 9,000 tons of cargo, but presumably you would lose a couple thousand if you got a dreadnought with a hangar. It also had room for 3,000 troops and 1 to 2 years of consumables. The original cost of a dreadnought was 7.2 million credits, which seems like a pretty good deal, even if you have to do a lot to modernize it. However, considering it was introduced in 119 BBY, you would probably not be able to get it at the original price. Generally speaking, the price of ships tends to go down over time, but the black market price of a dreadnought was allegedly 35.5 million credits instead. I'm not sure if that is the going rate or just the highest recorded sale, but either way you might be better off capturing one from the Empire instead of buying it. Interdictor. And speaking of capturing Imperial ships, I think one of the best you could get would be the Sinar Fleet Systems Interdictor-class heavy cruiser. There were several models of Interdictor throughout Imperial history, but this one is my favorite version of it. An interdictor was a type of ship that used gravity well projectors to stop ships from jumping to hyperspace inside their area of effect, or even pull ships out of hyperspace. Imagine parking one of these and a couple corvettes or frigates alongside a hyperlane in a remote area, and just grabbing and looting every ship that went by, completely unaware of your gravity trap until they were ripped out of hyperspace by it. Interdictors were typically very well protected, traveling in small battle groups with other Imperial warships. This would probably make it one of the hardest Imperial ships to capture, at least in this size range. However, a small rebel crew was able to destroy a prototype interdictor that captured them, with almost no preparation or planning, so a skilled pirate crew with a solid plan could probably manage to capture one instead. The Inderdictor-class measured 1,129 meters long by about 671 wide and 257 tall. It had a top speed of 975 kilometers per hour and a Class 2 hyperdrive. It was lightly armed with 20 quad laser cannons and 4 gravity well projectors. You would definitely want to keep it defended with other ships at all times, as it wasn't heavily armed enough for solo operations despite its size. The Interdictor had a complement of 24 starfighters though, so that does help it a little. The Empire equipped it with 1 squadron of TIE fighters or TIE interceptors, and 1 squadron of TIE bombers or TIE punishers. If your captured Interdictor came with these, especially the punishers, that would be an incredibly valuable asset. TIE punishers are extremely powerful capital assault bombers armed with ordnance launchers and bomb bays, which would really help to make up for the Interdictor's relatively light onboard armament. And even if you didn't manage to get the TIEs with your Interdictor, you could equip it with whatever starfighters and bombers you and your crew prefer. The Interdictor had a crew of 2,807 personnel, including stormtroopers, officers, and technicians. I do worry that you'd have a hard time finding pirates trained in gravity manipulation to operate the gravity well generators, but they probably keep a copy of the owner's manual on board somewhere. It also carried 80 passengers, 16 months of consumables, and probably at least a few thousand tons of cargo. The Interdictor had a steep price tag of 15.4 million credits, but that is of no concern to a pirate. Yours will be free. And those are 5 more of the best ships for pirates in Star Wars. Let me know which ones you would choose or what else you would suggest in the comments. Go check out the previous installments as well if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss a video. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.